The Yamnaya feature in my Bronze Age fantasy series Gods of Bronze. Description: the Yamnaya culture was a Copper Age to early Bronze Age archaeological culture of the Pontic steppe, north of the Black Sea, dating to 3300 to 2600 BC. Its name derives from its characteristic burial tradition. Yamnaya is a Russian adjective that means related to pits, and these people used to bury their dead in tumuli, the famous kurgans, which we call barrows or burial mounds in Britain. These contained simple pit chambers beneath the mounds. In life, they practiced transhumance, a type of pastoralism or nomadism where they spent winters in the wooded river valleys and summers out on the grasslands with their herds. The Yamnaya culture is identified with the late Proto-Indo-Europeans and is the strongest candidate for the original homeland of the Proto-Indo-European language, of which English is just one of many descendants. They possibly invented the wheel, and they were the first, or almost, to domesticate and ride horses. And they invented four-wheeled, ox-drawn, axled wagons that enabled them to drive herds of cattle across the steppes and carry enough water and shelter with them to do so. Because of these innovations, they were probably the first people in history to solve the problem of living out on the arid, barren grasslands of the Eurasian steppe, rather than always in the river valleys that cross it. The remnants of their camps, found by archaeologists, suggest that they wintered in river valleys, using the trees there for fuel to keep warm, and took their cattle onto the steppe in summer for grazing, and each group would have had their own territory. They ate horses, cattle, sheep, pigs, and also hunted saga antelope and other animals of the steppe and river valleys. We're talking about the great valleys like the Don and the Volga and their many tributaries. They also drank milk and ate butter and cheese, but adult lactose tolerance, lactose persistence, probably wasn't that common amongst these people until later. Some Yamnaya did a bit of farming, growing millet and amaranth, but it seems that it wasn't a huge part of their diet. Thanks perhaps to their incredibly tough lifestyle, their warlike patriarchal culture, and their high-protein diet, they were big people with large, robust skulls and big bones. And archaeologists immediately recognise their remains in excavations, versus those of the Neolithic farmers of Europe that they replaced or merged with, who were smaller people with slighter skulls and gracile frames. The combination of physical and social and technological traits meant that the Yamnaya were incredibly successful people. So much so that they expanded out of the steppes, along with other related peoples, and into Neolithic Europe. Different regions of old Europe experienced different levels of interaction with these expanding Yamnaya and other steppe people. In the early 20th century, it was imagined that they had swept down from the plains, conquering all before them like some Bronze Age Mongols or Scythians. And it's understandable because that is somewhat shown in the archaeological evidence, where the old cultural artefacts disappear when those of the Yamnaya show up. But that view of great armies of horsemen is anachronistic. There wasn't anything like that until the Iron Age, thousands of years later. The Yamnaya expansion was more complicated than that, and there were different interactions in different places and times, and it's not yet well understood exactly how it worked on the ground. But much of the expansion from the Black Sea all the way eventually to the British Isles was driven by bands of young men leaving their clan to raid and dominate others beyond. Over hundreds of years and many generations, this drove the expansion west and east. Watch my video on the Kourios to hear more about that. There were also rarer, great folk migrations, where whole people seemed to up and move thousands of miles very quickly to as far away ultimately as India and even to the edge of China, bringing the technology of horse riding, wagons, chariots and bronze working to those places for the first time. The Yamnaya and their descendants replaced and merged with the earlier peoples of Europe, so that European people look and speak how they do today, because these wagon-driving, horse-riding warriors are our ancestors. If your paternal haplogroup, your Y haplogroup, is R1A or R1B, for example, mine is R1B, then it's likely that your ancestors include the Yamnaya. R1b is the most common Y haplogroup in Europe, carried by over 110 million European males, and is most common in the British Isles. So for many of us, if you trace our lineages back through father to son, all the way back 5,000 years, we would find that these men of the Yamnaya are quite literally our forefathers. And that is in part why I wanted to recreate these people and show their impact on the world in Gods of Bronze. Thank you for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe to the channel.